Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode. Uh, this is me, Mark, here talking about Magic the Gathering. And today, I think it's really important that we address both the title of the video and the name of this deck. It's talking about unicorns, okay? Horses with a horn on their head that prance around. That's why the name of this deck is Prancy Horny Bois, submitted by one of our local gamers. Uh, this is maybe the most quintessential casual Magic deck for Commander well, it's for sure the most casual deck that I've covered in this series, but it's it's a really good example of a casual deck um, in general. So we'll talk about it a little bit. Now, first things first, there are a whole bunch of unicorns in this deck, but we're not going to call it a tribal deck. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about the commander. So the commander is Lathiel the Bounteous Dawn. It's 2, a green and a white for a 2/2 unicorn that has lifelink. And it says at the beginning of each end step, if you gained life this turn, distribute up to that many +1/+1 counters among any number of other target creatures. So you can target really any creature on the battlefield that you can legally target other than Lathiel to gain these +1 counters at the end of your turn if you gain life that turn. There again, like I said, there's a bunch of unicorns, but so if we were trying to, legitimately maximize what this commander does, we would be maybe caring about +1 counters. We would maybe be caring about life gain, um, because incidental life gain in a deck like this means that we get to add extra counters to things, which can get out of control quickly. Um, for people who have played a whole bunch of Commander, you won't see in this deck list a lot of your just very high tier cards that do those things. This deck does care about life gaining to some extent. It also does care about +1/+1 counters to some extent. It also cares about being a fantasy storybook maybe themed deck, which that right there is one of the things that casual commander players that could be a big deal to them. They're looking for flavor, they're looking for things that appeal to them. They're looking for cards. Hey, I have this in my collection. I want to put this in a deck. Or I saw somebody play this and I want to put this in a deck. So, we've got a huge number of creatures. We have 38 creatures in this deck, and like I said, it does have a whole bunch of unicorns, but it doesn't have a lot of your typical tribal cards in it. Um, so just so let's look at a couple of the unicorns. First, we got Mesa Unicorn. This one is hitting all the notes of this deck. It's a unicorn. It has lifelink, so we can gain some life, which helps us with what Lathiel does. That's perfect. We've got the Park Heights Pegasus. This isn't even a unicorn, but it's a flying horse. So it's got to go in the unicorns deck, right? We got to stay somewhat close to our theme. Look at this one. The Regal Bunicorn. It's a rabbit unicorn. I mean, that's perfect. We've got Ronom Unicorn. You can sacrifice it to destroy an enchantment. We got Sungrace Pegasus. This isn't even a unicorn, but it has lifelink. We've got Abzan Falconer. It says it's not a unicorn, but it says each creature you control, the +1/+1 counter on it has flying. So that means that it helps the +1/+1 counter theme. We've got a lot of Pegasuses because there's only Pegasi. I said Pegasuses, so it can be wrong, and we're going to stick with it. This one, another unicorn, Brightmare. When it enters the battlefield, tap up to one target creature. You gain life equal to that creature's power. Look at the artwork on this one. Look at the horn on this unicorn. It is shining a bright light. It's the beacon of, what does it say on the text? A ray of hope in the darkest night. I mean, that's what unicorns do, I think, right? So we're staying on theme. We got the Celestial Unicorn. Whenever you gain life, put a +1/+1 counter on Celestial Unicorn. Perfect. Here's a not unicorn that cares about gaining life. This is a dinosaur of all things in here. Let's see. Let's find a couple more unicorns. Oh, we have Emil the Blessed. This is a really interesting one. It has an activated ability, pay 3, exile another target creature you control, then return it to the battlefield under its owner's control. So you get to blink a creature. And it says, whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, you may pay either a white or a green. It's a hybrid. And if you do, you put a +1/+1 counter on it. If it's a unicorn, you put 2 +1/+1 counters on it. Perfect, right? Another unicorn, more unicorns. We got a green unicorn finally. This one, all creatures able to block prize unicorn do so. That could be dangerous if we're putting a lot of counters on our creatures. There's another Pegasus. These are like the cousins of unicorns. I don't know. Somebody will tell us the lore of Pegasus and unicorn. Here's a Wishmonger. I wonder what this is eroded to, because it's certainly not a monger. Maybe it is, but the person in the picture looks a little bit like a unicorn. And then we have the classic Crested Sunmare, which, by the way, if you know the person and you ever play against the person who plays this deck, they have a playmat of this artwork of this Crested Sunmare that they play on. And they have a bunch of very precious tokens that they use for their decks. So it's just, I think whenever I personally play with this person, it's kind of a giggle fest, and I got to be honest, that's how I like to play Magic. That's how everyone should hopefully want to play Magic, is having a great time. And so this one, it says at the beginning of each end step, if you gained life this turn, you create a 5/5 white horse creature token, and it says other horses you control have indestructible. Now, I don't get to make the rules, but it feels like if we have horses and we have Pegasuses, we decided Pegasuses, and if we have unicorns, why are they not all in the horse family? Why can't this say other horses, unicorns, and Pegasus you control have indestructible? I don't know. It should. It feels like it should, if I'm being honest. We got some more unicorns down here. This one's a dragon, of all things. Some more unicorns. Some more things that care about +1 counters. We got a Planeswalker here. A Johnny the Great-Hearted. Its -2 ability is to put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control and a loyalty counter on each other Planeswalker. Well, there's no other Planeswalkers to get the loyalty. It also says creatures you control have vigilance, and its +1 says you gain 3 life. So it's kind of the perfect Planeswalker to be in a deck like this. Okay. So then we look at the rest of our spells here. Oh, I was going to go back. So we have a couple of cards that are just like... We have the Charming Prince. I mean, if we're going to be playing a unicorn deck, we better have the Charming Prince in there. We don't even care what it does. It's in there specifically to be part of the unicorn deck. We got the beloved princess. Of course, we need that in the unicorn deck. It has lifelink, so it actually kind of fits the theme. You love to see that. Here we have a 1-mana white card, modal card. It says you choose one. You gain 4 life, you destroy target enchantment, or you put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. So all of those things could be useful, and modal cards are always a little better than they seem. But most people would be like, I would never play this in my commander deck. And it's like, well, is your commander deck casual? Probably not as casual as this one. If we gain 4 life when Lathiel's out, we get to put 4 +1/+1 counters on our creatures at the end of the turn. So that's pretty good. We can destroy an enchantment, or in a pinch, we can just put a +1 counter on a creature. Is it perfect? No. Does it fit the theme of this deck pretty well? Absolutely. Sanctify, destroy target artifact or enchantment, you gain 3 life. At sorcery speed. It's fine. Then we have the Ozolith. Now this is a powerful card. Whenever a creature you control leaves the battlefield, if it had counters on it, put those counters on the Ozolith at the beginning of combat on your turn. If Ozolith has counters on it, you may move all counters from the Ozolith onto target creature. That could be really, really good. For sure. Of course, we have the Wedding Ring. This is just an A+ casual commander card right here. Basically, so what it says is when Wedding Ring enters the battlefield, if it was cast, target opponent creates a token that's a copy of it. Whenever an opponent who controls an artifact named Wedding Ring draws a card during their turn, you draw a card. Whenever an opponent who controls an artifact named Wedding Ring gains life during their turn, you gain that much life. It's a partnership. It's a great situation. And you can have some very meme-worthy stuff happen in a game when you cast a card like this. You love to see it. We've got a lot of other stuff here that's so here's a good one. Blessed Sanctuary. Whenever it's an enchantment, prevent all non-combat damage that will be dealt to you and creatures you control, and then whenever a non-token creature enters the battlefield under your control, you create a 2/2 white unicorn creature token. So it's an enchantment that helps us get more unicorns. Here's one that could turn your creatures with +1/+1 counters into 4/4s with flying that are angels. So you could end up with a unicorn angel or a Pegasus angel. That sounds pretty dope. One of the best things I've ever seen was putting Colossification on Lathiel and having a 22/22 lifelinker. And I gotta say, somebody at that table killed that creature after the Colossification went on it. And I was not happy about that because I thought that was amazing. Absolutely amazing. I want to go back to this idea now of this deck being casual. So it does have some relatively powerful cards. We already talked about the Ozolith. The Court of Garenbrig can be extremely powerful, especially if you're able to maintain being the Monarch, because then it'll double the number of +1 counters on each creature you control, which is pretty insane. It's got Mirari's Wake, a known excellent card, and just a variety of other ones that are pretty good. You got Tristani, another really good life gain card. Emil is a good card, even though we're not necessarily abusing it in this deck. So there are a handful of potentially pretty good cards. But for anybody who plays a lot of Commander, they would tell you that there are plenty of cards that could be getting played that would enhance a tribal strategy or enhance a +1 counters strategy or enhance a life gain strategy. And so should a person who has a deck like this be in a situation where they say, hey, I want to make this deck more streamlined, or I want to improve it somehow, then they have room to do that. But this to me is, if I'm in my early days as a Commander player, a lot of times I think what people want to do is they want to be able to feel very connected to the deck that they play. And they want to feel like that it represents them, and they want to feel like they're playing something that they can put their stamp on, even if it isn't perfect, or it isn't, something that somebody else wants it to be. However you want to look at it, it's theirs. And so if our goal was winning the game and was to be more competitive and stuff, would we play a deck like this? No, we would want to. I mean, not necessarily that we wouldn't play the commander, but we might really be trying hard to to get improved cards, or things like that. We might be trying to streamline this a lot. And I don't necessarily think that that's always what commander is about. I think for a lot of people, one of the best things about the game is being able to sit at a table with friends and enjoy what you're doing, even if it isn't perfect. But you get to do a thing that is representative of you. And you can do that if you're playing competitively as well. Like, that isn't limited to just a casual game. But I'm very glad that we got to cover and talk about a deck like this. And I, as I sit here and say that, I mean, we do have some of the like very usual culprits that you see, not culprits, but cards that you always see in Commander. We've got our Soul Ring, we've got our Cultivate, we've got our Beast Within. We've got our Command Tower. We've got some of our 2-color lands. We do have some of our commonly seen cards. Here we have Conclave Mentor. If one or more +1/+1 counters would be put on a creature you control, put that many +1 of those counters on that creature. And when it dies, you gain life equal to its power. This is a card that's pretty optimal if we're doing a counters and life gain theme. So it's not that we're not playing any of those cards, because we are playing some. And I think that is, do we want to be playing some things that are pretty good in the strategy that we're doing? Absolutely. Even if we're being a little bit casual and we're trying to have a little bit of a theme with our deck. And so we've in the other decks that we've covered, we've covered decks that were more competitive, and we've covered decks that had a much more streamlined plan, and we've covered decks that were meant to be kind of unique, or take a different approach or angle toward the game. This one, I'm again, it's I feel like we're now kind of rounding out different things that we've covered, because now we're getting one that is really representative of, hey, just play stuff that you think is cool and interesting and that you own, and that you're not going around working really hard to pick up all these perfect cards, when we could just say, hey, I'm going to play the stuff I have, and it's going to fit in my theme, and I'm going to really enjoy it. So, and I hope when you get to play against decks like this, the fun kind of rubs off on you a little bit, or it's contagious, I guess, would be the best way to think. That hopefully that fun is kind of contagious. Yeah, this is exactly, to me, the kind of thing that I would have done when I was in my early days of Commander, and I would have been absolutely thrilled about it. And to be honest, I'm absolutely thrilled about covering it now. So, again, thank you to our community for continuing to contribute decks and deck lists to this series to be shared and covered and talked about, and to allow people to have more perspective and ideas on the kind of Commander and Magic decks that they could be choosing to play. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. I love you all, and we'll see you here next time. Peace.